Pat.
Go Pat.
Alrighty, I would like to echo Monica in saying thank you to everybody who helped make this event come together. Thank you to Mr. Hernandez and Mr. and Mrs. Watkins for popping out some wonderful kids back in the day. We appreciate it. And thank you to everybody else for showing up, because if you didn't, we would have done all this for nothing. So thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, Pat.
For those who don't know me, my name is Pat, and I am part of the privileged group that got to meet Stephen and Kayla right here at Good Counsel Camp. That's right, Good Counsel Camp. Let's give it up. When Stephen first asked me if I would be one of two best men, first thing that popped in my head, as I'm sure you can imagine, was, all right, now I only have to do half of a best man speech. Pretty cool. But it turns out I was wrong. So luckily for me, Stephen and Kayla are getting married during the age of the internet. You'd be surprised how many websites there are out there that help you write a best man speech. I mean, what a time to be alive when a procrastinating best man like me can go online the night before and print out a speech that's pre-written just like this. That's awesome. So I met Stephen and Kayla back in 2006, as I said, here at camp. And to be honest, I've pretty much been third wheeling it ever since. I was there underneath the fireworks when they had their first kiss down by the lake back in 2007. I was there in 2008 prepping the bus tubs in the kitchen by myself, while the other two members of the kitchen staff were cuddling over in the counselor's lounge. And I was also there in 2014 when head counselor Stephen and department head Kayla said their final farewells as counselors here at camp, right here in the mess hall. When you've been around a couple, as long as I've been around Stephen and Kayla, you can't help but have a couple of observations. So I wanted to share some of those observations with you tonight. Unfortunately, I didn't get the giant tent memo, so it may be hard to see some of my diagrams, but I will do my best to explain them to everybody in the back. So, this first one.
Patrick,
Can you hold it? Yeah, sorry. Can you hold that one?
talk in the mic. We can't
Got it.
hear you.
This first graph is a pie graph that I made. The small blue section is the amount of time that Stephen and Kayla have lived in the same city together, and the red section is the amount of time that Kayla and I have lived in the same city together. Upon completing this graph, I realized that if this were an actual pie, the red would also represent how much Kayla would eat, and the blue would be the small piece that maybe she'd give to Stephen if she was full. All right, this next graph, sorry, in the back, it is a line graph showing Stephen's changes over time and the amount of time he's been with Kayla. So first, let's talk about that pink line that's ever increasing over time. That would be Stephen's new sense of fashion, thanks to Kayla. But unfortunately, if we're going to talk about that, we got to talk about that ever decreasing line, which I'm sorry to say is Stephen's manliness. All right, this next one's got a couple numbers on it. I'm going to go through them real quick. The first one, 25,362. Monica already said it, but this is the amount of printed out text message conversations that these two have scrapbooked over the years. 2008, well, that's the year that all three of us were kitchen staff together, but also, conveniently, it's the amount of times that we've annoyingly reminded everybody that that's the year that we were the kitchen staff together. Underneath that, we got the number one, and that is the amount of times that Kayla has ever cooked a meal for Stephen. And following that, we do have a zero, and that's the amount of times Stephen ever asked for Kayla to cook another meal for him. All right, so I've picked on him a lot, but the real reason I am up here is about how amazing of a person Stephen Watkins is, and how privileged and honored I am that I get to be up here telling you about that. Spending a summer scrubbing dishes in a kitchen is not an experience you expect to come out of with a new best friend. But that's exactly what happened with Stephen and I. We worked for many years after that, growing closer and closer here at camp, kind of hitting milestones along the way together as counselors, but also as people. And there's nobody else I can think of that I'd rather have hitting those milestones with. There are way too many stories to tell about our time here at camp, and not enough time to tell them. But trust me when I say that Stephen is a person that I have loved like a brother. He's somebody that I've laughed the hardest with, and sometimes the person that I've cried the longest with, if I'm being honest. When I think of the friend that Stephen is to me, I get excited. And I get excited for the day where I get to introduce my future kids to him and say, this is my best friend, Stephen. And hopefully those future kids will respond, Dad, he looks a lot older and fatter than on all those pictures you showed me. As a couple, Stephen and Kayla, I respect you. I respect you for never letting your love for each other hold you back. As you've lived out your lives, you've each created your own unique paths. You've gone to different schools. You've even made the sacrifice of living in separate cities until very recently. But I think it's through these compromises that we really see your love for each other shine through. And as you go on to live the rest of your lives and you create this new path together, I'm going to miss those days when I was your third wheel. But I know that no matter what changes for us, our experience here at camp will always be what binds us together as friends. So I'd like to propose a toast to Stephen and Kayla. A couple that we can all look up to, and a duo that inspires me every day. May their marriage be filled with lasting happiness and amazing memories, and may their love for each other forever grow. To Stephen and Kayla.